All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, brother.
Hold on. I got you. Got you locked in. Oh my! I should be able to hear you now.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I can hear you loud and clear now.
Good, good.
All right. Perfect. And it's recording. So, bro, dude, when you get to a certain age, man, you know what I'm saying? They need to just don't even let you get around stuff like this here,
Yeah,
bro.
you need a caretaker around certain stuff, bro.
You used to laugh like when I was younger, man. I used to laugh at because my mom couldn't, deal with the remote, and I'd be like, "That's so simple," Now I'm that person. But
man,
anyway, so hey,
let me tell you this right quick. I was at a friend's apartment, and I got ready to go down. I had something in the car I wanted to share with this friend, so she should go get it. And she lives on the third floor. And I got to the elevator, and I'm standing there wondering why the heck is this elevator not working now? And I wasn't pushing the button. I took my car keys out, and I was pushing the remote on my car keys, man. Don't tell nobody that.
Okay. look. That is a good segue into this first recorded podcast that I'm creating. Like I said, it doesn't even have a name. That's how young it is. Matter of fact, you're the first guest. Bro. I even had the sound effects and everything laid out, right? But the sound effect is gonna be coming through my phone. But since we got messed up with the laptop and had to switch to the phone, all that's out the window.
We're gonna make it work.
Yeah, so we literally we playing this by ear. But anyway, I still think it's gonna be great, right? I'm just positive. So look, let me tell my quick story. I'm gonna make it really fast this time. But how I met you, right? I met you on a movie set.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine had told me I needed to know you because I was telling him I wanted to go into comedy. And I'm just that type of dude, man. When I come up with an idea, I act on it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not the one that'll talk about something and don't act on it. I know people probably will be terrified to do what I'm doing at this moment. Start a podcast at my age. You know what I'm saying? But this is something I decided to do. So I decided I wanted to get into stand-up comedy. And I met you on the movie set. I can't think of the name of the movie. It was my first movie too. And I told you, I was like, we were having this conversation. I was all serious. And I was like, hey, man, I really want to do stand-up comedy one day. And you were like, okay, I'm going to put you on the list for Sunday. And this was like on a Friday. I was like, in my mind, I was like, I didn't mean like right now. I meant like years from now. You know what I'm saying? He's like, but then I couldn't say no because I had just told you I wanted to do it. So since you said, okay, I'm gonna put you on the I can't remember what it's called, the roster or whatever it is for Sunday. I was like, wow, I think that's when open mic night was up, right? Dude, I ain't have no material, nothing. I'm talking about I just had been talking trash, just like I'm talking trash right now about wanting to do a podcast. And I didn't know it was gonna happen like that. And then, bro, when they called me up on the stage, right? This is all I remember. It was almost like I blacked out. The only thing I remember is you hand me the microphone, and I'm telling you, I had no material, zero. I couldn't even think of. I was so in shock that I was going to be at the Funny Bone. My mind wouldn't allow me to even think of a joke. So the first thing I said when I grabbed the microphone is I looked out in the audience. My heart was beating 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I said, "This reminds me of the last time I was in court." And people just started laughing. Right? What I meant by that was I was terrified when I was in court. Yeah. And I'm terrified right now. I think they thought I was trying to be funny, like, this guy, it wasn't a joke. I was just telling the truth. But then when I saw them laugh, I was like, wait a minute. So then I started telling the story about when I was in court. And it was, but I learned then on the spot how to make it funny.
Yeah.
But it was the truth. It was just in the way I was telling it. So anyway, like I said, long story short, this young man here brought me on. He was the host of the Funny Bone. But what people don't know, well, me and you talked about this earlier. There are plenty of people who know of you. It's just so crazy that the people in, Shreveport Bossier may not
Yeah.
know about you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I
Yeah.
want people to do is I want them to know you because I know you, right? And I know the things you've done and I've done shows with you. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I remember at one time you told me you were like, I don't do shows with just anybody. And bro,
No, I don't.
you just don't understand when you said that to me. What that did for me was I was like, well, I'm gonna get to be the one that he does shows with. That's what when you said that, because everybody in our little circle wanted to do shows with you. And I was like, I'm gonna outdo all of these cats, right? Just being me. So anyway, saying
Yeah.
all that, I want to go ahead and move forward, and I want you to go ahead and just introduce yourself and start. Man, it's so much to you. I kind of don't know where to start, but I think you know where to start from because I want people to know who you are, right? The military stuff, the recruitment stuff, the stories that you've told me over the years. And
Okay.
people need to know the type of work you've done. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Entertaining the troops, the people you work with. Now that's a long list of people, and we
Yeah.
probably don't have enough time, but everybody that anybody thinks is famous, you more than likely have worked with them. But you
Yeah.
live here in Shreveport, Bossier, and people don't know it. So, okay, I'll leave it alone because I can talk. But yeah, bro, let us know who you are.
Well, Lewis, as you can see, man, I'm sitting here in what's obviously a workshop. And of course, my name is Lee Marvin Adams. That's who everybody knows. And I've been doing stand-up comedy about 20 years now, believe it or not.
Okay.
I've traveled all over the world, but that was after a career in the military. I served 22 years in the Air Force, and I've now been retired 25 years. Can you believe that?
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
and all of that, like I say, as you see, you see me sitting here in a workshop in the back of my house, and I had a friend come by a few months ago, and he knocked on the door. I wasn't in the house, and I told him where I was. And he came out here, and he said, "Man, you've been all over the world. He said, you've done some incredible stuff. Why are you out here? You could be anywhere in the world you wanted to be right now. Why are you out here in this workshop?" I said, "I think you answered your own question, brother, because I could be anywhere in the world I want to be, and this is where I am." But I tell you, Lewis, you put me on the spot when you told me to talk about myself, because that's one of the hardest things for me to talk about. But I'll tell you this: when you said tell people about me, here's the thing that I want everybody to know about me. Every morning when I wake up, I literally tell myself, I hope I wake up. I hope
Okay.
this happens for me. Because Lewis, I'm one of 14 children. I was born and raised in Jonesboro, Louisiana, not far from here. And it was one of the poorest, most segregated towns in America at the time. And I've gone from Jonesboro. I knew two things about Jonesboro growing up. I knew that it was a cool place because my family and my friends lived there, but I knew I had to leave. And people
Mm-hmm.
asked, how did I know I had to leave? And I told them the first time I saw the Beverly Hillbillies, I said, I've got to leave Jonesboro because I want to see a cement pump. And they're not only in Jonesboro, so I'm gonna have to leave here. And
Wow.
and and I left via the Air Force because that was the most cost effective vehicle to do it. I lived in Dallas for a couple of weeks with my brother and his wife, but they were way too Pentecostal for me, buddy. So I had to move back to Jonesboro, and the Air Force was my ticket out. I was stationed around the world, married, have 3 kids. But more than that, when I left the Air Force, it was like I felt like I was finally grown, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I learned in the Air Force, I said, okay, here's my chance to apply some of this stuff and see what happens. And one of the best and worst things that happened to me in the Air Force was I was a recruiter for a while, and they taught me a lot about not just a sales pitch, but I had some really good recruiting instructors, and they taught me a lot about human nature and how we make decisions. And everybody told me how hard recruiting was going to be, but when you have certain tools, it's easy. It's fun, and I took a lot of that and applied it to the corporate world. When I
When you
left,
when you say you have certain tools, what do you mean?
you
Like
well, because for instance, in a sales situation, a guy can be telling you, "Yeah, I see what you mean. I like that product. I like that idea." But if he's standing there with his arms clamped really tightly across his chest, he's not feeling.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You need to know that, and certain other buy signals. If their eyebrows raised or if they smile without knowing it, they're buying into it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
don't oversell it at that point. Tailor your sale to what you see working. And corporate America was a big, big disappointment to me. I found out I'm not a good employee, Louis. I'm just not. As a matter of fact, I'm not even ashamed to say this anymore. I quit a job one time because I showed up early for work and couldn't find a parking spot.
You
So I
just
figured
left.
if the employee parking spot's full, they got all the help they need today. So I went back home. I'm just not a good employee, but 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 in all that kind of stuff, while I was working, one of the most fascinating excuse me, one of the most fascinating jobs I ever had was working at the public library.
Okay.
And you
Tell
know
me
what the
about that.
public library taught me to do? The public library showed me that every day, homeless people and millionaires walk through those same doors, a lot of times looking for the same information. And you wouldn't think that would happen, but it did. And while I was there, I met a guy that introduced me to the idea of stand-up comedy. And I had worked in the music industry after I retired, so I wasn't really interested in anything like that. So I really kind of showed up just out of politeness to watch their open mic. And this guy tricked me into getting on stage, and that was the beginning of stand-up comedy.
Okay. So how did he trick you though? What did he do?
Well, he would come by the library, and he told me he was a part of this local comedy group. And he said, "Man, you ought to come down. You'd be really funny." He said, "You might even have professional potential." I said, "No." He said, "Well, come down and watch us next Wednesday night." So I went down to the Holiday Inn downtown Shreveport. And when I walked in, Chris saw me and he said, "Oh man, you're just in time because I'm next. And you really want to see this guy that's coming after me because he's funny."
No. Okay.
So,
Okay.
it's kind of a round robin open mic. So the guy on stage introduced Chris. And when Chris did his little set, and when he got done, he started introducing this next guy. And I thought, wow, he's making this guy sound like he's really going to be funny. And when he said, "Please welcome to the stage, Lee Adams," my first thought was, wow, there's another guy here
Tua.
named Lee Adams. And I turned around. And when I looked back, Chris is standing in front of me with the microphone. He said, "Come on, man, just go up there for 5 minutes and pretend we're standing in your office at the library." And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And 15 minutes
Yeah.
later, when I sat down and people started to clap and stand up, I thought, wow, what just happened? But The funny thing about that, Lewis, is I hear a lot of comedians when they talk about their first time, they talk about how frightening it was.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, when he gave me that microphone and I stood up there on that stage and I turned around and I saw those people sitting there, I thought, wow, this feels familiar. I think I'm home. And 5 minutes turned into 15 minutes. And it was obviously at least good enough that they didn't give me the light, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just, it took off from there. And from there, it's been one of the most incredible journeys, man. I tell you, that's why I wake up and think, okay, if I woke up and I can see the interior of my bedroom, everything that came before this wasn't a dream; it was real.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do understand that, man, because that's the way I felt in the Air Force. I was in the
yeah,
Army before I was in the Air Force, but once I got in the Air Force, that whole time in the Air Force felt like a dream. I
yeah.
can't explain it, and I tried to a couple of people, but I know they wasn't getting it. So I know where you're coming from.
Well, my two things that preceded this that make me think differently about the world that I thought I knew. My grandmother, who was illiterate, she could not read and
Mhm.
write. She used to always tell me, she said, "Boy, you were born on a Sunday." She said, "You were born for good luck." And she
Okay.
told me, she said, you could go put on your Sunday clothes and climb over in that hog pen. And by the time you get out, you're going to be cleaner than you were when you got in. She said, "I don't know how you do it." That was my grandmother told me that. Now, my
Okay.
senior year of high school, my high school counselor, he asked me, did I have any plans for after high school? And I said, yeah, to get up late every morning. And Mr. Jackson told me, he said, "Son, it's a doggone shame there's not a job somewhere for you where you could lie all the time because you could do good at that job." And after that first experience on stage, I thought, well, if Mr. Jackson was alive, I'd tell him, I think I just found that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been great, man. It's been unbelievably great. And that's why I appreciate it and try to share it with other people. As you know, a comedian with any potential that's serious about it. Let's talk, because I had a lot of people bend my ear and give me information that straightened 20, 30 years out of my learning curve.
Let me ask you this, because I know that was especially when I was doing comedy. There was a scene where there was a group of us. I'm pretty sure there's still you know a group of comics here in the city, right? Shreveport Bossier. Well, maybe
Yeah.
because of COVID, maybe it's not as like, because we used to get together, but maybe it's starting back. But who do you see in this area that say you would give your stamp of approval to?
I'll tell you, man. And I know you know who this guy is because you introduced me to him. And there was a spot downtown at the time called 4J's. They had an open mic.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the guy and I met there, and we talked, and he asked me what I thought he should do. I said, man, just go up there and be you.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about like an out of body experience. This guy was just so natural on stage the first time. And when he said something about this guy he was about to get in a fight with, but he smelled transmission fluid on the guy's breath, and he decided it'd probably be a bad idea to fight anybody with transmission fluid on their breath. I
Okay.
lost it after that. I forgot everything else he said, but he was great, and we actually did an overseas tour together.
Okay.
Comedian
What?
Muncie. He is
Oh yeah, for sure,
he,
for
he,
sure.
he's the one guy that I think he has more new potential than anybody I've ever seen.
Man, I got a chance to go down to the Holiday Inn and because I know Munchie's people, right? His
Right.
mother, I know his people. I grew up, we all grew up together. But I got a chance to go down to the Holiday Inn, I don't know, a few years ago and see him, right? Because I've been hearing, good things. Matter of fact, his mother had told me some very good things, but I hadn't seen him live. And bro, I made the mistake of sitting in the front row. And I was sitting to myself. And what I liked about him is because when I was doing comedy, I was at my best when I was hosting. Because when I was hosting, I could just say whatever I wanted to, In my mind, there was no pressure because anybody coming to see me, I'm just hosting, bringing up the comics, And it seemed like I got more laughs then. You know what I'm saying? Okay, but bruh, Munchie got me so good. Because I didn't think about it. I'm sitting on the front row. And I was doing it because I wanted him to know I was supporting him. All the people was like, and I was just like, no, I want him to know, I'm with you. Let's go. And Munchie said, hey man, what's wrong with you? You a black ninja? And I looked up and I was like, oh damn, he talking to me. And bro, he just began to roast me. I mean, he was so good. He was so good that even though he was roasting me, I felt good about it. And I laughed.
Yeah.
Because it was good,
Yeah.
And it was just right off the top of the head. It wasn't I'm making up these jokes. And bro, and he roasted me good too. And by then I was like, well, can't get up and move. But so I agree with you on that.
He's such a good natured guy. He understands how to go about it, But that goes back to something, and I actually shared this with Munchie, something that John Witherspoon shared with me. And you talk about a brilliant guy, man. That's a whole nother subject. But John Witherspoon told me, he said, be smart about your comedy. I said, what do you mean, John? He said, you see, a smart guy can actually act stupid and make you buy into it. You falling out of your seat laughing. He said, but a stupid guy can't even fake smart.
Yeah.
Because once he opens his mouth, the game is over. He said, you want people laughing with you, not at you. And it took me a while to digest that and study it, but there's a difference. And it works, and people remember you for that. And bro, I have been so fortunate when it comes to stuff like that. That's why when a guy like Munchie comes along, I don't have one moral thing to do when he asks me a question, and that's answer it to the best of my ability, because everything I know, 90% of it, I got it from somebody else. So I have no right to hoard it. It's not mine to begin with. John Witherspoon gave me this piece. Eddie Griffin gave me this piece. Steve Harvey shared this with me. So when a young, serious-minded brother that has the talent comes up to me, I'm more than happy to share it with him.
Speaking of that, on that, since we talking about that, like who have you worked with? And I know it's too many to mention on this thing, but just off the top of your head, because I got a chance to work with Steve Harvey, Mike Epps, Cedric, the guy that Anthony, AJ Johnson, and I wasn't working in the capacity of comedy at that time, right? I actually was like part of Steve's security team, and I was working with the promoters. But I got a chance to work with a lot of. But I know you've worked with tons of them, and
that is what makes me so grateful, man. That there was a time when I used to watch Eddie Griffin on television, and I thought, man, I bet he'd be a cool guy to sit down and have a conversation with. And I've done that several times, As I said, John Witherspoon, brilliant guy, man, and so humble and so willing to share with you that it was just a cool experience. I thought I used to see this guy on the Richard Pryor show, and
Yeah.
now we're driving along in my truck, talking smack to each other, and planning for tomorrow night's gig, and that and I mean the list just goes on and on, man. Um, uh, Pauly Shore, Rob Schneider, Ralphie May, Alonzo Bowden, Eddie Griffin. There's a really, really outstanding comedian from Houston, Texas, Billy D. Washington. I
Okay.
got to work with him a lot of times. I've worked with Craig Robinson several times, and Craig is he's hot as a $5 iPhone right now. I mean, he's in game commercials and everything else.
Yeah. I
Uh,
saw him blow up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just been an incredible existence, man. I mean, Adele Givens, Thea Vidal, John Reap from the old Hemi commercials, Theo Vaughn, all those guys, man. Bill Bellamy. So, and every one of them, you learn something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, Bill Bellamy, for instance, Bill Bellamy is the king of the soft start. What I call a soft start. He starts his comedy show like Keith Sweat starts his radio show.
Okay.
Real low energy, but he builds in such a way that, man, it was a fun ride. And most times they tell you to go out, put your energy out front first. Bill Bellamy can do just the opposite and make it work.
Okay. Hey, one thing I want to touch on also before, I want to continue there, but there's something else. You are involved in real estate also,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. How long you're a real estate investor?
My brother and I have been involved for well over 10, maybe going on 15 years now. And I think he told me that as an initial thought, he was watching the whole mortgage crisis,
Okay.
right when the change of presidencies there. And he said he looked at it a different way. He said he looked at it as here's, 15 million people that have lost their homes, sure enough, but here's 15 million people that probably in the next 10 years won't ever qualify for a mortgage again.
Yeah, gotcha.
So
Yeah.
if you give those people a decent place to stay, that's my brother always terms it as a self-licking ice cream cone. He said you can't go wrong, and so far that's been a winning formula. But here's our bottom line, Lewis. The bottom line is we won't rent someone a house or an apartment that we wouldn't stay in.
Gotcha. Okay. And
Won't
speaking
do
of that, you guys not too long ago built an apartment complex, right?
Built some apartments in Texarkana, Texas. Built a 5-unit apartment complex that has been fully occupied just about all the time.
Gotcha.
And my brother is the brains behind it. He took what was a disaster, the mortgage crash. He took what was a disaster and saw an opportunity that would be profitable to him and beneficial to others at the same time.
Yeah.
And how does it get any better?
I first of all, I'm jealous because, man, I wish I had that kind of relationship with my brothers. But also, being in the real estate game, and man, I've been in it for a while too, bro. I'm always glad to see people get into this space, because for me, I truly believe that in your portfolio, you definitely need real estate. And
Oh yeah.
especially the way I've been able to use it as leverage. Man, I've done so many things, with the leverage of real estate. I really believe I could teach a class now, because I've been
I
in it
think you
long enough.
should.
I really
I
do. I
think you
really
should.
believe I could teach a class in real estate, banking, credit, all of that. Well, I know I could teach a class in credit, but banking, dealing with the banking industry. So I'm always happy to see people, get into that space. But
Well,
I,
here,
I wanted to go back because there's something else because you've done so much, man. We'd have to break this down into 10 parts to really. But there was a time when you were doing. I don't know. You still may be doing the cruise, the corporate gigs, right?
yes,
What
yes.
like because you explained that to me, the difference between what we were doing, just getting a regular gig and corporate gigs. And can you talk about that?
Sure. You see, comedy, and John Witherspoon, back to him again, he told me, he said, learn the business of comedy. He said, that's why they call it show business. He said,
Mm-hmm.
the show, you've got that part, but learn the business part where you can get paid. And in comedy, naturally, you've got open mics and things like that where 99% of comedians get started. And then you have comedy clubs, and there are two myths about comedy clubs. Uh, Comedy clubs will make you famous, not true. And
Mm-hmm.
the best comedian always gets the gig, not true. So if you have 50 funny bones nationwide, you probably have 2,500 comedians competing for those slots.
Mm-hmm.
But not many of those same comedians are able or willing to do clean comedy for a mixed business crowd. And
Okay.
guess what? It's supply and demand. Since not as many people can, uh, uh, the demand is greater and the supply is less. So what you would make on a typical corporate gig, it might take you 2 weeks of comedy, 2 weeks of comedy gigs to make equivalent money. And I came into comedy with a mortgage and a kid in college, so I had a few different priorities. And John suggested to me, he told me, he said, "You're clean enough." He said, "You just need to know the right people." So while in my car, I'm driving from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, all the way over back to Port Arthur, Texas, and will probably make $500 net that week.
Yeah.
I can fly up to Tulsa, Oklahoma, do a 1 hour comedy gig, and live comfortably off that for a month.
Gotcha.
So it became a process of opportunity and return. And comedy clubs will get you that social media notoriety, which is good. But here's something Steve Harvey shared with me. He said, "Laughter doesn't pay your bills."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "So get your money." He said, "And find out where you can get the most money at." So when and if you're a real comedian, you get jealous. Even if you're doing a $5,000 gig, you get jealous if somebody's doing a $500 gig at a popular comedy club
Yeah.
because you want to be there. There's part of you that wants to be there. But I got over that, and as it turns out, for the last 10 years, I've done most of my comedy corporate gigs and overseas work.
Matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. You've been entertaining the troops for how long?
The first trip I made was Afghanistan in 2007, and up until 2011, I made at least 2 trips a year.
Okay.
Some years I made three, and in fact, I have the uh, the distinction of having been the first comedian ever to perform at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. And when the troops were coming home from Iraq, I was the last comedian that performed for them at Al Assad in Kuwait when they convoyed down from Baghdad. So that was pretty fun, and especially after having been military, to go back in a, for all intents and purposes, civilian capacity where you see, missiles going off, you hear guns and things like that, and it was it makes you question your sanity, for a minute. You think, man, I could be in Fort Walton Beach making $250 right now, Uh, might be a little gunfire in the parking lot, but I got mine too, But it was the gratitude and to see service in action, because I was, for the most part, a peacetime veteran. But to see the other side of it, to see what we trained to do all those years, to see it in action, that was different. And it gets real, Lewis, when you're 17 miles from the Syrian border, and all of the experienced guys get their sleeping bags and sleep outside. I asked one of the troops, I said, well, if you know there's a chance of imminent attack, why are you sleeping outside? He said, they know where every building on this place is, man.
Wow.
He said,
hey, you said something, Lee. You just made me think about something too. You said earlier when you said Steve Harvey gave you some advice. Bro, let me tell you what Steve Harvey said to me. We were in Mobile, Alabama, and we got there, I guess, late in the evening. Yeah. We got there in the evening. He did the show. After the show, I think we went to some clubs. Yeah, we went to some after parties. But then we ended up at the hotel. Now, naturally, Steve, I don't think he stayed in the same hotel we was in. I don't think so. Matter of fact, I know he didn't let us ride in the limo with him, right? Yeah. Matter of fact, Mike F was so new. Mike was doing the show with him. Mike was so new, he didn't let Mike ride in the limo with him.
Wow.
Mike rode with me and
that
Freeman.
Was a minute ago then.
Yeah. Mike was telling us about a movie called Friday. No. I think it was next Friday. I believe it was next Friday. Yeah, I believe it was next Friday or Friday after next, or one of them, because he was Day in it.
Yeah.
And we were sitting outside of Steve's dressing room, and he was telling us he was going to be in this movie. He was from Chicago, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't believe it. We didn't believe it to the point, like, even years later, we was like, man, especially when I got in the company, we was like, man, we should have got his phone number. Because he was just really down to earth, I mean, he was super cool dude, but he was so green. Steve was like, you ain't riding in the limo with me. So we went to that party. But this is the crazy part. So I can't really sleep good when I'm outside of my residence. So when I was even at hotels, I don't sleep good. So I got up really early that morning and went downstairs for breakfast. And Steve was there eating breakfast. So I go and I sit at the table with him, and he says, so you're from Shreveport, huh? Because he had did some shows here in Shreveport. Yeah. And I think I had met him. I think that's how I met him. And then we locked up and ended up, next I'm going to do this show. We're going to Mobile. But there was a young brother here named Brian who was promoting Steve. But this is the point.
Oh, yeah.
So Steve, you remember Brian?
I remember Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Steve tells me, he says, man, what do you do? Because I was hired as like a form of type of security for him. But I was like, at the time, bro, I was an investigator, right? Dude, I was an investigator. I was probably in my 4th or 5th year as an investigator. And but I was a private investigator, right? I had this company where I had some really, really wealthy clients who paid me to do, things like investigate their potential business partners, give me the financials on them, find out what their habits are before I go into business with them. I was that kind of guy, right?
Sure.
But bruh, Steve, when he heard that I was a PI, he said, "You a black private investigator?" I'm like, like naturally, yeah, you see I'm black, so definitely, yeah. Bro, he roasted me for about 10 minutes. He roasted me and he laughed so hard at me. He laughed so hard at me. I mean, he was just, Man, he was just making up scenarios that I would be in as a black PI, right? And
Yeah,
he just found it hilarious, man.
yeah.
But then he said something to me that I'll never forget. We was in that conversation, but he said, I think it was his first wife. Uh, uh, her they lived in like a gated neighborhood, and he heard a knock on the door one day, and he went to the door because he's like, there shouldn't be nobody knocking on his door without security at the front gate notifying him somebody's
Right.
their way, right? Because I think he said something like, "Man, I wish I wish I'd have known you during this time." You know, he just gonna
Yeah.
like I guess stand me outside his house or something, right? But he said, man, he said, so he opens the door and is his wife's ex-boyfriend. He's like, man,
Huh.
he's like, for the life of me, I can't figure out how in the hell he got past the guard at the gate, right? But then he said to me, he said, but then I looked at the dude, he said, and then I started feeling bad. He was like, because damn, if she dated him and now she dated me, I must not be nothing either. You know what I'm saying? He's like, when he seen the dude, he's like, and she went from him to me, that's telling me something. But bro, I had to tell you that because he roasted me that day. He killed me. And it was
Oh yeah.
funny, you know.
Smart guy.
But he
Smart.
also, when I decided to do stand-up comedy, he was an inspiration because I watched how he would tell stories, you know, on stage. And he would make a joke last 10 minutes, man. You know, it wouldn't
Yep.
be just,
Yep.
every 18-second thing. He would tell a
Yep.
story. He told a story about some black business people who had a barber shop, like a barbecue shop, a beeper shop, and did hair all in the same building. But he made that thing drag for like 10 minutes, you know what I'm saying? And it built up. And then when it hit, when it finally hit, it really was super duper funny.
That's one of the things that John Witherspoon and I say he pointed this out to me about myself because I met this guy when I was so young and new to comedy. I was just delighted to be in his presence. And John told me, he said, you'll do good. I said, why, John? What do I need to do? He said, keep doing what you're doing. He said, everybody likes a good story. I said, they do. He said, yeah, you're a storyteller. He said, you're not one of them one-liner guys. He said, and thank God you can make a story interesting. Ain't nothing worse than a boring-ass story. But Steve Harvey was another one of those that could take you on a 5-minute story. It's 5 minutes to the punchline, and when you get there, it knocks you dead.
Yeah.
He kept you engaged with little intermediate laughs along the way. And when you got there, it was worth the ride. And that's part of Steve's power. He's a great storyteller. And people will stay with the story for the ride. If you got a good track record as a storyteller, they'll stay
Hey,
with
Lee,
it. Steve,
there's something going on with your audio. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hold on, let me see. Is that any better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. My heater kicked on. But no, Steve knows the art of. You still
Yeah. Now you came back clear now.
there? Okay.
I can hear you loud and clear now.
Steve knows
Steve knows the art.
He knows the art of telling that story and keeping you engaged to the end, And of course, the master of that was Bill Cosby. He can tell a 15-minute story about eating a bowl of Jello, and you start by the time he gets to the end of it. But that's the beauty of it. But I'll tell you something, Louis. I'll tell you something that really changed how I approach comedy. I met this guy. He's not a widely known comedian, but he's one of the best comedians in the world. And he goes by the name of Michael Jr.
I remember him from like Comic View.
And I when I got to meet him, I told him I hadn't had one of my best shows. It was good, but before I got off stage, I already knew what I could have done to make it better. And I said to him, I said, I just didn't make these people laugh tonight like I normally do. And he said, why are you trying to make them laugh?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's an odd question for a comedian. I said, because that's what I'm supposed to do. He said, no, bro. He said, try this. He said, don't make them laugh. Give them something to laugh about and let them give you laughter in return.
Wow. Wow.
He said, that's a far better transaction than making somebody do something, don't you think? And it was so simple. You thought, why didn't I think of that? But the beauty of it is, you know, they guide you where you need to go. They let you know what they want to hear, and at the end of it, everybody's happy. You know.
You know, one thing I noticed, like when I was doing stand up, I got the best reaction from the audience because I never really wrote anything. I tried to write, but I couldn't, right? But I noticed that usually if I was just telling the truth, I got more laughs. You know, it's just it's like I'm telling the truth. I'm just saying it in a funny way. You know, it's like or I'll tell the truth and I'll add something to it to make it funny. But believe it or not, it was truthful. And then something else I noticed was, for me, most of my comedy actually was tragic. You know, it was tragic. Yeah, it was like I can understand that Tears of a Clown type song. You know what I'm saying? I get that. You know, I get that you know, like Robin Williams, you know, doing what he did, and you're thinking he's this guy you see on stage, but you don't understand that when he gets off stage, he's in the world. You know what I'm saying?
The world is waiting.
Yeah, and I got that. So the best jokes that I ever had came from a hurt place.
Well, you know, that's something that John Witherspoon told me about Richard Pryor, because John was Richard's opening act for years. And John told me the same thing that we heard on stage that would make us laugh. He said to hear him sitting around in a hotel suite telling those stories from a personal standpoint, you almost couldn't look him in the eye. You felt so bad for him. He said, so the genius of it was he took that hurt and said, if this is what life's going to give me, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of good comedy does come from that tragic place, but we understand happy, you know, as human beings. But when a comedian or a court jester or whatever he is can take sadness out of the sky that you recognize as sadness and then twist it around, and when he gives it back to you, it's funny. You know, that's why people like us. You know,
let me ask you something that could be controversial. Like, what do you think about cancel culture when it comes to comedians?
I know comedians who have overplayed boundaries in the name of comedy. And I know some comedians who are just naturally funny and from that place. And it would sure be a lot better if you could know the difference in where they're coming from. Because I've never done the kind of comedy that victimizes somebody or singles them out. On the other hand, I look at it this way, Louis. I've never been court ordered to go to a comedy show.
Got you.
So,
I get you.
You know, if I don't like a person's comedy, then I change the channel when he's on, or I don't go to his show. I'll tell you who gave the best answer for that. I was working with Eddie Griffin, and a young radio journalist asked Eddie, he said, how are you so comfortable doing such controversial material? Eddie Griffin told him, he said, I don't do controversial material. He said, I do Eddie Griffin. The controversy comes when your values clash with something Eddie Griffin said, and
Got
that's
you.
not my
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, and Eddie said, and that part's not my problem. You know,
You know,
and so I think cancel culture, in a way, um, I'm not sure it should be applied to comedy the way it's applied to sexual mistreatment and stuff like
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Because after all, it is a free art form, and if you don't like Dave Chappelle, then don't go see Dave Chappelle. But don't protest outside his show. Find something else to do with your time. You know.
Yeah. You made me think about something. There's this guy on the show called The Breakfast Club. Goes by the name of Charlemagne, right? And
Right.
he's a controversial guy, but I rock with him. Because he will at least say, I think, what some people are thinking, but they won't say. But he
Right.
said something that he's been saying this shit for a while. But basically, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm pretty sure I ain't gonna say it right correctly. But basically, what he's saying is, you can say whatever you want to say. You just can't control how somebody's gonna react to what you say,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So yeah, so it's yeah. Go out and say whatever you want, but you know what I'm saying. But how they receive it, you ain't in control of that.
That's it.
You can't say, well, I didn't mean it for you to take it that way, because you can't control how they're going to take it.
You can't control that.
So, so I'm kind of, you know, I guess I kind of walk the line, I'm like I said, I'm just in my lane. I just stay in my lane,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and when I watch the world around me and I see. What's amazing to me right now is it's amazing to see where let's just say 20 years ago, somebody was saying that, man, one day you're not going to be able to say what you want to say, and I would have argued them down. There is no way that that's going to happen in America. That's
There's
impossible.
no way.
We got the right freedom of speech. There is no way that will ever happen. Now, I watch all of these different podcasts. And since I'm trying to get into that arena, first of all, let me shout out David Shands. That's like my number one podcast I listen to. He got a podcast called Social Proof. And then another podcast called EYL. I don't know if you heard of Earn Your Leisure. But those are two podcasts based on business and entrepreneurship.
Right.
I listen to that a lot because that's what I am. Right. I always said, if I ever started doing this, I wanted to let those guys know publicly that I really respect what they do and appreciate it,
Good.
and I share their information with people, all the time. People, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, you definitely need to reach out and listen to those two podcasts, right? I'll tell you something else. Now, I don't know if you've ever met this guy, but I just ran into this guy and I never thought that I would really be rocking with him. The comedian Pierre. You ever did anything with Pierre?
Yes, I've worked with Pierre many times, man, many times.
Bruh, I've seen Pierre throughout the years and movies and everything, but I never just really was a huge fan, right? But I noticed him. But I've been listening to his podcast lately, and man, he's hilarious, bro. He's just got his own thing, you know what I'm saying? And if I guess either get it or you don't, right? But I was just amazed that I got it, because I think I was listening to Corey Holcomb.
You would have the same conversation with Pierre in the back of a taxi as you do on stage. He's coming from where he is, and that's what makes it great a lot of times.
Hey, since I just mentioned him, have you ever worked with Corey Holcomb?
I never have.
Okay. What about they just did a show?
Let me touch on something you said earlier, Louis, about how once you say something, you can't control how it's received.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big problem with a large sector of this whole cancel culture thing. You have the right to freedom of speech, but you don't get to control how people react to it. And if you say the right thing that's offensive or abrasive enough, then how are you offended when you get less than a desirable reaction? See, freedom of speech doesn't mean you have the freedom to make people disagree with, make people agree with. Freedom of speech doesn't mean that you get the last word.
Yeah.
Because other people have freedom of speech too. So they might say something back that nullifies your point, points out your ignorance or whatever. And that's freedom of speech too. And a lot of times those freedom of speech advocates forget that it's a two-way street, you know.
And this is something else that cancel culture brought out too. I didn't know that people were so sensitive. I just didn't know. I just didn't know that there were such triggers. Because like I say, I'm in my world, I'm in my little bubble, and I'm more of like a recluse than anything. I really don't socialize that much. I'm just a reclusive type person. So I move around in the world, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not like a fly on the wall. And so I just didn't realize that people had that much, say, psychological damage sometimes, and it's weird because I can say that and somebody could take that as offensive. You know what I'm saying? Like why do I have to be psychologically damaged?
Well,
but I just didn't know.
But people will, it's too easy to slip into an information bubble that has only what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And when you get so absorbed with only what you want to hear, any outside a contradictory message is offensive because nobody wants to be wrong, right? So how dare you come say something that contradicts what I have the gall to sit here and believe without proof? And I've never been offended at being wrong when someone first approached it in the right direction and when I was serious about what I was doing. Because if I'm wrong and I'm on a serious journey, whether it's a financial investment, a personal endeavor, or whatever, and you just happen to say, "Hey, Lee, have you ever thought about doing it this way?" and it turns out you're right, I would be a fool to be offended by that. But if I'm wrong, and if I'm holding on to something more for emotional reasons than logical reasons, then yeah, it's going to piss me off when you step on my sensibilities because this isn't about being right or wrong. This is about me being right.
Yeah.
That there's an old saying that everyone is entitled to their opinion, but everyone is not entitled to their own facts.
Got you. And
I heard that. That's what gets a lot of this cancel culture on the extreme edges, because you've been used to saying what you want to without recourse, without any responsibility for it, and now just because you want to say something that's patently offensive to 65% of America, you wonder why they stopped buying your pillows. That's not cancel culture. That was opening your mouth at a very inappropriate time and saying something that wasn't to your advantage.
Two things that since I'm at the age I am now, as you get older, I guess like my mom used to say, you should get wiser, right? And so now where I'm at now is everything like the cancel culture and all that I can identify because years ago I would have definitely been right there with them. I was super intense, involved in what I thought was right or wrong, right? But as you get older, you live, you learn, life goes on. This is one thing I've learned and that's really helped me in life is I've learned to accept whatever happens to me is on me, right?
Right.
Like I gave up the outside boogeyman, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's nobody trying to do nothing to me that I don't have a hand in. You understand? Like I was talking to somebody recently about a relationship, and well, he was still kind of bitter, right? About how things went. And I think they've been divorced for years, right? But he was still bitter. And I said, man, one thing I've learned, and I've been able to, incorporate into my life is I don't blame my ex-wife for nothing. You hear
No,
me? Zero.
no.
Zero. Because if I flip that around, I chose to have her in my life.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that means I chose to have whatever came with that, right? She
That's
chose to
right.
have me in her life. And she chose to have whatever came with that, which was a hot mess when it come to me. You know what I'm saying? Uh, but but I just gave up, that. You know what I'm saying? So any situation I run into, let's just say if I was going down the street and somebody threw a bottle at me, in my mind, I would be like, but you chose to go down that street. There's a whole bunch of streets you could have went down. Or you could
Yeah,
have went down that street 5 minutes early or 5 minutes later. For whatever
yeah,
reason that happened, it happened probably for a reason, but that was a decision you made. And what I've
yeah.
learned and I've noticed is people don't want to take responsibility. They want everything on the outside to be the problem.
That's it. That's it. It's being mistaken or being responsible for your own outcomes. That's almost offensive nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I failed because of all these external factors. I didn't fail because of bad decisions, bad timing, or anything else on my part. There's always something else. And it's the same way with that cancel culture thing we were talking about earlier. I want him silenced because he makes me feel bad about the way I am. I want
Mm-hmm.
him silenced because he doesn't listen to me. One time recently, when I was in Germany, this guy was telling me about a saying. I don't know if it's a German saying or just something that runs in his circles, but he said it in German, and I asked him to translate it for me, and it basically translates for your opinion to offend me, your opinion first must matter to me.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do relate to that. I get that. I do. I
I
do.
thought, okay, so somebody totally out of my realm of influence and daily activity has an opinion about me. Okay, well that's his right. He can use his brain to form opinions about anything he sees or hears or thinks.
You
But
know,
it doesn't matter to me.
I heard a minister say this here years ago, and it changed me. It changed my way of thinking altogether, man. It took me on a whole nother direction. But he said that the only, and I'm definitely paraphrasing him. I know I'm gonna mess this up. But he said the only way you could say, call me out of my name and it offend me is if I don't know who I am.
Yeah,
You understand? Like, because
yeah,
if I know who I am, I don't care what you call me. I know exactly who I am. You
yeah.
understand?
Well,
So,
yeah,
so that's the only way. If I have no of understanding of my identity, you could say something to me and it could be hurtful. Now, I can't speak for nobody else in this world but myself. So for me, it relieved a burden off my shoulder because once I heard him say that, I was like, wait a minute, I know exactly who I am. So you could
yeah,
call me whatever you want to call me.
yeah.
You're just mistaken because you're
That's
talking to
it.
the wrong person,
That's
right?
it.
Or you can make up a name for me. That's your thing. I can't stop that, right? But what you can't change is what I know about me.
That's it. And I heard that put another interesting way. There's this big challenge among the self help world and all of its friends influencers to be yourself. And I heard the question asked, how can you be yourself when you don't know who you are?
Yeah,
And and,
yeah,
and that's one thing that we all have to do in some segments of our society more than others. We need to take about a step and a half back and take a real serious and honest assessment of who we are, because a lot of us are just like downtown property, overvalued. You know,
Yeah.
and if we look at ourselves in a more honest context and see that in this whole realm of existence, man, the most we are is a speck. So find your place, find your thing, do it to your benefit, your happiness, and hopefully to the benefit and wisdom of somebody else. And man, you've done all you can do in today's time. But you know, that's too simple for a lot of people.
Dude, look, you couldn't have said it better. Now I am experiencing something on your audio again, but I was able to still hear you. Now we're up on the hour mark, believe it or not. It went really, really fast. Yeah, so that means, you know what that means? We got to do this again, cause you know, man, when we get to talking, bro, and we haven't even scratched the surface, you know, I just kind of wanted like to introduce you. You know what I'm saying? But I'd like for you to do this again, come back and share some more.
Yes, because we touched on something that we could make a subject in and of itself, and I'd enjoy the opportunity, man.
Bro, you look, we didn't even get into you and the shea butter making. We didn't get into you in the building rocking chairs. You know what I'm saying? It's a million things we did not get into.
Yeah, we just got on the introduction and got sidetracked and think about it. Yeah, so let's whatever works for you, man. I'm for fun. I think you're doing a great thing here. It's gonna be a great thing for you and for a lot of other people, because the first key to knowing it is hearing it, you know.
Well, so look. I tell you this here, some upcoming conversations. One of them, we're going to be discussing the metaverse, cryptocurrency, Web 3.0, the Internet of Things, the difference between crypto and what's the tokens. You know, we're going to be discussing the stock market, options market. We're going to be, I already have, you know, some bankers quite a few bankers have agreed from different banks here locally that they're going to come on because they want to share, you know, their products. But all of these bankers that I'm asking to come on, I have a personal relationship with them, right? And so I know personal things, and I want to talk about their journey, you know, like not only where they come from, but where they plan, you know, where they're going. Because I've seen them come up, you know. Like I said, it's my daughter, my youngest daughter, Charmaine. She's got a story. My son, Jordan, I've spoken to him about being on the show. So hopefully this is gonna grow into something, like you say. It'll get better as we go. But you know, man, like I told you earlier, I didn't want to keep putting it off. You know what I'm saying? No matter how it turned out, I wanted to, because that's, believe it or not, that's my philosophy. It's crazy philosophy, but that's my philosophy. My philosophy is I'm the dude who'll jump out the airplane and then think about the parachute on my way down. Like in other words, I'm a jump and then I'm like, I'm gonna figure it out on the way down. So I will take a risk, even if it looks like it may not turn out good, because the scariest thing to me in life, or one of the scariest things to me in life, is to live and not do what you wanted to do with your life. You know what I'm saying? To live and just be doing what the world needs you to do. That's scary to me. I take risks. I do. Man, I've done so many things. I could do 2 hours on me, you know, and you know, but I wanted people to know you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And I want to share this with you. You talked about jumping out of the plane and putting the parachute together. That might seem like a risky idea to some, but that guy has more incentive to get it right than anybody else in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, bro. Well, look, Thank you, man. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. But I'll be reaching back out to you.
Yes,
And
man.
yeah, so be prepared because I'm gonna be calling on you, man.
Great. Thank you for having me, Lawrence.
Yes, so brother. Thank you.